I kind of came up with the formula to help people, because my purpose in life is to bring people to their greatness and let them. One of my favorite movies as a kid was Pay It Forward, and for years I was in significance and certainty. And as Tony says, you'll never be happy if you're focused on significance and certainty. You got to lose the ego and you got to get into contribution and growth. That's growth and contribution is where you have to live, and paying it forward. Because giving is receiving,
right?
And that's what it comes down to.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Real Estate Rundown. Today, I am honored to have Ken Van Liew on my show. You guys are going to want to tune in to see what Ken's got to say, because I don't know about you guys, but I've never got to interview or meet someone that actually builds skyscrapers. So guys, this guy not only builds skyscrapers, he does it in the most competitive and ferocious market on the planet, which is New York City. So you're going to want to tune into the Real Estate Rundown and watch me and Ken have this great conversation about his modern wealth building formula that he not only uses to raise millions of dollars and tens of hundreds of floors, where he's building out skyscrapers in New York City, but he's going to drop some beautiful knowledge on us on how we're going to be able to employ these principles ourselves. So guys, the Real Estate Rundown, Ken Van Liew and me, it's a winning combination, guys. We'll see you back here in a minute.
Welcome to the RobNet Real Estate Rundown podcast, where Shannon RobNet has handpicked industry experts to discuss all aspects of investing in the real estate world, and seeks to help all real estate investors improve their education and their proven strategies to grow their real estate journeys. Now, here's your host.
Hey guys, welcome to the Real Estate Rundown. Today, my guest is Ken Van Liew. Ken, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shannon. It's a real pleasure to be here.
So Ken, I got to know, really it's an honor because I do garden style, right? So we do 3-story and that's like all we do. We don't use elevators. We don't do anything. And I'm actually having the opportunity to interview a guy that builds skyscrapers. How did you do it? You're building skyscrapers in New York City. Tell me your story. I got to know.
Absolutely. It was very fortunate. I kind of fell into it. And it started when I was 17. My Little League coach gave me a job one summer working on a major dam rehabilitation. And I had this taste for big time construction for my last 2 years in high school. And I go to college, and I wasn't the smartest guy in the tool shed, I guess you could say, the sharpest tool in the tool shed. I created the 6-year plan in college. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was an all-state football player, so I had some gridiron experience. So after practicing for 3 years, I met my wife taking Calc 2 for the 3rd time. She taught me how to study. And then I went into engineering school. And when I guess the seed was planted was my senior year, I won a site design award where I subdivided a 13-acre lot. And I had to do the CAD design. It was funny because back then in 1984, there was no CAD, but we had this program, VersaCAD, and we actually designed it in VersaCAD, and we won this award. So there's this seed planted, and I graduated in civil engineering, and the civil engineering thing lasted about 6 months. I hated sitting at a desk. I love going outside. I wanted to wear shorts, and I'm just like, this thing's not working for me, So I was doing like legal work at night, and this guy's like, hey, you want to go build a building in Poughkeepsie? So I go and I build my first 5-story building. Didn't know what I was doing. I was a super project manager, muddled through a project during the winter, built 32-unit building, and I saw this ad in the paper, waterfront, New Jersey waterfront. I called my fiance. She wasn't my fiance at the time. I was about ready to get engaged. I said, I'm going to be moving back to New Jersey and building waterfront. She's like, you're crazy. Next thing you know, 2 weeks later, I was working for the Left Rack organization. I was a super on 2 33-story buildings, and I had a chance to literally learn how to build them. And from that point, my mentor said, if you really want to be the best in the world, go to New York City, build skyscrapers, because that's like playing real estate in the Major League All-Star game. So I went to work for Liew McGovern, and I was a project super, and I was put on a $1 billion project in Brooklyn. And I built the Security Industry Automated Corporation, which handled every New York and American stock exchange transaction. It had 1,500 BMS points, pretty fascinating building. I then built the Brooklyn Union Gas headquarters, and that's where it was almost like an apprentice program. It was a site safety apprentice program. And they said, hey, since you're managing that project as a super, you can also be the site safety manager. And if you train in this program in 18 months, you'll be a site safety manager. And you need that if you want to build buildings over 100,000 square feet. So I earned that license at like 26. And I was fortunate to finish the Brooklyn Union Gas headquarters. And I started, raising up the ranks in Bovis. And I became a project manager. And I ran the E91 headquarters, working hand in hand with Rudy Giuliani. And it was the first New York project ever built on time and under budget. And right after that, I had about 1 million square feet of commercial under my belt and about 1,000 residential units. And I kept playing it. I was with Bovis till probably 1996. And then I went to work for some huge developers in New York City. I built East 64th Street, 80th and 3rd, a couple others. The Manhattan Club was another extraordinary project. And then I went to work for a little small GC. Brought them from, it was a women's business owned enterprise, brought them from 5 to 40 and realized, I had some talent. And in 1997, I opened up KJV Development. And I was telling my story on a golf course, and I landed my first 12-acre property and ended up quitting my job. And it started from there,
Yeah. It's funny. I go back to the college thing. We talked about this a little bit before the show. My college experience was one and done. One semester and I was done, right? And that just proves that school isn't for everybody because like you said, and Ken, I'm going to try and quote you here. You said that after 6 years of college, you went to all these classes and you never learned how to make any money.
Yes.
What you learned how to do was be a civil engineer or do this job or do this task or do this, but it never taught you how to make money. What taught you how to make money was your on-the-job experiences that you just relayed to me that I'm absolutely fascinated by, because that's the one thing that I know in my life would have helped me so much, was to have spent time like you did working for other people and working your way up the ranks to then step out on your own shingle and be able to work at that level. I'm sure you and I can stand here and all day and swap construction stories. But for our listeners, what is it that when you're looking at this, you talk about this job on the golf course where you got your first 12 acres to develop. You start out and you have 12 acres of ground and you're going to build a skyscraper and you got to get to cash flow. How are you breaking this down in your mind to make sure that this project works?
Yes, exactly. And it's funny because I think like a paper napkin sometimes, and that's one of the things I'd say. The one thing which was actually practical that I got out of college was analyze your deals on a paper napkin so you don't make a mistake, and honestly, when I got that site, my first thinking was very basic. It was the land cost is going to be, 20 million. I can build 100,000 square feet. Right now, construction costs at that time were probably about $4.25 a square foot in the city. That's another whole story. The numbers are just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the rule of thumb was, take 25% of the hard plus the land. And that's your soft cost. Add those three numbers. That's your total development cost. With that, you have banking relations. Be conservative. Say that you're only going to get, say, a 70% LTV. Take that 30% equity, put that number off to the side for a minute. Look at what on that 100,000 square foot is buildable. So if you have a, typical loss factor, say of 15%, work with 85,000. Look at what revenue you can create from the 85,000. If you're in the business, understand what your expense ratio is. Come up with a quick estimated NOI, and then relate that to the equity that you have in. And then what I usually do is I have a criteria that I know that if I reach, I think it's a 1.3 on a development deal, because most development deals, it's going to take 2 years before you get your first money coming in, right? So you need like a 1.3 ratio in order to be able to syndicate it, right? So my first thinking on a project is that aspect. And, and that's kind of what I incorporated, that I call it the top-down thinking that I brought into a formula where people, doing residential can go, wow, if I treat that and I syndicate this single family home and someone gives me money, I make an extraordinary return. So the concept works well across the board,
So I want everybody to take, and I want you to stop this right now. And I want you to rewind it. And I want you to get a piece of paper, because what Ken just told you was very similar to the formulas that I use when I look at what can I build and will it work. So guys, he just laid out for you how to do this with a single family home, a duplex, a fourplex, a 12plex, whatever the number is of units. He just told you guys what you got to do, where you're going to get your money, what kind of rents you got to have. He just laid it all out for us. So guys, go back, rewind this, and listen to that again. I wish I had the ability to animate this and really show it, where he is explaining to you line by line by line, guys, how to pencil a deal and know on a napkin, without spending a boatload of money, without spending hours and hours and months and spreadsheets, whether or not it's going to work in 10 minutes.
Yes.
And then start digging in. Ken, that is absolutely pure gold, what you just said. That's amazing. That's amazing.
And that's what I coined my paper napkin analyzer, because, when my professor, and I honestly swear, because when I went to NYU and I was like, I got all these degrees, civil engineering, I don't want to be an engineer. I want to learn how to do real estate. And, I went to this curriculum, like, oh, you need to take this class. I'm like, no, I'm not taking that class. All right. I could teach that class. I want to learn something international, and I want to learn how to do deals. I want to learn how to analyze a deal. And I remember the guy saying, and I swear the first deal I did, I kept the paper napkin. You put it in a frame. Yeah. And what that paper napkin does, it gives you that snapshot at stabilization. And then you go, okay, let me now look at, the other, components of how I can, increase the return, right? You have your mortgage reduction return, you have your depreciation, you have your appreciation, and you add on your cash on cash. Then the next thing your IRR is looking good, and or better than what it was, and you can move on it,
But Ken, it's so funny because sometimes people take, they call it a deep dive, where they go in and they got this really fancy spreadsheet. The next thing you know, you're so far from the truth, right? It doesn't even make sense. It's not relatable. And if you can't make this explainable in a napkin, if you can't make this deal make sense in a 4-inch square, it's probably not going to work. Yes. Because to get to that derivative, or to, we got to multiply by this, we got to do this market research, we got to project out, we got to this, we got to that. If it doesn't work in a 4x4 square, it's probably not going to work. And that's the thing that they never teach you in school.
Yes.
That's the thing that's beautiful about the simplicity of what you just said is, look, if this will work, then from there, you're going to expand it. Your returns are going to get better. You're going to know that there's some room in here. There's an ability to increase the profitability, but by and large, it worked in a 4-inch square, and we can go from there. That's awesome. So now we want to shift gears a little bit, and we want to talk about, you mentioned Rudy Giuliani, okay? The first New York project built on time and under budget, right? What a milestone that was. You also talk about, you've also let us know that you worked with Donald Trump and his organization. Love him, hate him, doesn't matter. The man has built a real estate empire. Tell us what you did with former President Trump.
Yeah, I met Donald Trump. I worked with him closely, actually, on his 40 Wall Street project. I built the Manja restaurant for a client. So, I used to see Donald come in a lot, but had met him, on one of the residential teams that built his Riverside Plaza. Yeah, so I was on the Ratner team. You've probably heard of Bruce Ratner. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Forest City Ratner. I built Metro Tech for him. He went on to own the Nets, and it was real big. But
so you've worked with some of the best and the brightest.
Yeah, I was fortunate. I had some training with some big time developers, and then I finally connected the dots and realized this civil engineering thing that just clogged my brain. I was more of a street guy, like I was telling you. I grew up on the streets of Brooklyn, enjoying Italian food every Sunday. Right. So that's where I grew up.
Yeah. And it was later in life you realized that was because you had gangster relatives, right?
Yeah, I guess you could say they had some of the names with the vowels,
Yeah. So then in this, in working with some of the best and the brightest and realizing that their formulas weren't much different than yours, they were doing things that you were watching happen, you came up with what you call the modern wealth building formula.
Yes.
Explain to us what that is. You've already blown us away with the napkin thing. But what is this modern wealth building formula?
It's a funny story, and you may not believe it, but And I'm not good at games or video games or anything. But, one day I was sitting there and I'd done a lot of Tony Robbins stuff, and I'm always thinking about massive action. So I had this, I had these letters floating in my head, and I had just taken a course with Landmark. It was on wisdom. And, I've always been a leader, but, I want to be a bold leader. And then I kept thinking about how I forward thinking, and this word was scrambled in my head, MBF, whatever BF. And I came up with modern wealth building formula, which was really about the massive action I had taken and the wisdom that I had accumulated over the years, because, I didn't know where to obtain it with mentors, and then the bold leadership and really stepping up and being a leader. And then the out of the box or forward thinking, whatever you want to call it. I came up with this formula, and I was like, well, what is this formula? What have I been doing? I've been finding deals and funding deals and facilitating deals. So you're funding and facilitating, and you have this Tony Robbins twist, and you study with Jack Canfield and Dale Carnegie and Landmark. And, so you have this whole self-mastery thing and process mastery and influence, integrity-based human influence. And, all of a sudden I started to put what I believed was a formula. I then started testing it. It had worked with skyscrapers. It worked with commercial real estate, worked with residential. I was then a partner at a company called Flippin' USA, and we did 137 deals in 1 year. And I was like, wow, I should really get all this stuff that's in my head on paper and see if I could help others make it bigger than myself. I started reading about some of the statistics to realize, 42%, I think it was 2 years ago, of people retiring have less than 10 grand.
Yeah.
I'm like, people got to start collaborating. And then you get, hammered over the head with the pandemic. And just when people are getting ahead, they get slammed down. So I kind of came up with the formula to help people, because my purpose in life is to bring people to their greatness and let them. One of my favorite movies as a kid was Pay It Forward, and for years I was in significance and certainty. And as Tony says, you'll never be happy if you're focused on significance and certainty. You got to lose the ego, and you got to get into contribution and growth. That's growth and contribution is where you have to live, and paying it forward, because giving is receiving,
right.
And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. So you've been able to capsulize that. And this is one thing that I've found in my life, and what you're saying, Ken, just really resonates with me, because it's jumbled in your head. It's scrambled. It takes time for it to get worked out, for you to come up with with the Ken special, the modern wealth building formula. And then at that point, you're really able to put that massive action into play, where you can now teach others how to do the Ken special, do it the way that I did it, without all of the mistakes and all of the detours and all the long way arounds that I did to get here. And that part, you find your purpose, and you're able to give that away, and you're able to change people's lives by changing their perspective. It's such an amazing thing. And it's so rare. It's so rare that people like yourselves that have achieved greatness. You've done some amazing things. You've done things that 1 in 1,000 haven't done, and yet you're able and willing. That's the key word. You're willing to give that away with your modern wealth building formula, and being able to help people do that. That is truly, truly extraordinary. And it's something that very few people do.
Thank you very much. And I admire what you're doing, because, you shared with me, you were fortunate to have someone at least show you maybe a little quicker than I. You had some generations there. I started, my dad climbed telephone poles, and my mom was a bank teller, and
right.
I guess my journey was a little bit, I would say, more sporadic. So, I got a little bit, out of it, and, and it's nice. And I appreciate you sharing your feelings, because it's my pleasure. I'm kind of showing people a little bit about what you do, and I see you're syndicating some beautiful deals. I'm looking at your job sites. They reminded me of a transit village I built. It was 52 units and a quick commute to the city. It sold like hotcakes. But yeah, I just love what you're doing too there, buddy.
Well, and the thing is, though, Ken, it's so funny, because I've always used the term. with my dad and my mom, I got to stand on the shoulders of giants, right? My dad was the son of a mechanic, right? And he and my mom figured out real estate together. You know, my great grandfather sold real estate before the Great Depression. My grandma sold real estate because she wanted to buy a car to find a husband. You know, there was a story behind it, right? My mom sold real estate because my dad was building houses, and how he came about that was the biggest change in our family, because he was able to come from a wage earner,
Yes.
right, to an entrepreneur. That's the transition that you made in your life after years of working with all these different great people and learning the systems that they did to make this happen. That was the transition that my father did at 22 years old, when he stepped out of being a mechanic, working for the union, and took on this entrepreneurial role. And that's where I got my start, was in the entrepreneurialism. But I didn't have any banking background. I didn't have any business background. I didn't have any apartment building background. I didn't get any of those things. I went straight into business. So nobody's going to let me peek at their business model, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to hard knock my way through this. But the thing that I've also, like you, I think I've found the greatest satisfaction in the last couple of years is this giving back. Is this, you know, I got a challenge. You got the modern wealth building formula. That sounds nice, right? Now I got to come up with something that sounds nice too, but it's about that. And the podcast for me is a way to do that, because I'm able to bring people like you, which I got to tell you, Ken, I can't tell you how much we appreciate having someone like yourself with your experience on the show to be able to tell us these things that, you know, Boise, Idaho, we got a 20-story building. That's the tallest one we got, right? Your third project was a 33-story, right? So we're already outclassed by what you did, you know, a couple years back. But what I'm looking at is you're giving this knowledge to us, you know, and you're improving the lives around you. So, but I want to hit on. You mentioned you guys you were working with a company, Flippin' USA. You worked on flipping houses. You know, how was that process compared to building skyscrapers?
Yeah, and you know, the funny thing was, and so you can get the context of working on flipping houses. So I came in as a partner CEO to take a model and bring it national. So I came in with the skyscraper top-down thinking to what I call was a group of misfits that had a synergy. And what we did was I looked at what they did and we studied it, and we then put a system behind it with software where literally we would scrape all the auction sites. Things would light up on the board. We had an office with ping pong tables, trampolines, TV studios, like couches, fun. And what we would do is we'd scrape sites. Things would light up that was below market value because we would be extracting from Zillow. Then I had Facebook Live, where I had analytical managers in cubicles analyzing properties, calling foreclosures. I had failed. I called them reconnaissance managers. One guy was a Marine. He set up the team. I had bank keys. I was going in houses. We would literally go to 7, 8 auctions a week, and we were hitting it hard. So we bought, you know, over 10 a month. And we put the system together. And then I knew it wasn't going to last because I was doing the development side of Flippin' USA. I purely went there to see if the formula would work, because most people will say you don't need other people's money to do wholesaling. But when you want to scale it like this, you need other people's money, right? I had people handing me stacked of certified checks going in. I was paying them 20% all day long. We were making 200% return, selling the projects back to us, doing retail, making another revenue stream. And that's why I went to Flippin' USA, to prove the modern wealth building formula. As soon as I proved it out, I left. I then seen, I got to write this book. I got to get into some bigger stuff, get back into the city. I went, you know, into New York. I actually had a concrete company. I cracked the code in New York. As I told you, you know, you got to crack the code. We built New York. We built skyscrapers non-union. And then, you know, my recent transaction, we bought a $6 million mortgage for 2.8. We got a CVS. We got affordable housing. We have market rate housing, 20,000 square foot office, restoring a 100-year-old restaurant, doing some multi-use. And people are sending us stuff from the city, but the city is shitty shaky right now, but it's going to come back.
Ken, I think that what you're getting ready to prove again is that a formula that works in one environment, truly tested through several environments, will keep working. right? I mean, I believe that your modern wealth building formula applied to a really robust market or a flipping market, because I'm going to assume the timeline on the flipping market was not such a great financial time, right? It worked there. It worked during the good times. The concrete company worked when it was great. It's going to work when it's down. Things are going to be changing, but the modern wealth building formula, the baseline for all this is not changing. It's still that 4x4 napkin, and it still works the same flipping way, right?
You know, the best thing you just said, it's kind of been my cycle, you know, my cycle formula. Like, you know, the one thing I teach is, you know, then they go, well, you know, what do you want to do in real estate? I said, you need to look at what produces a rate of return, because the structure is all the same, you know, and if the risk is rewarding, you take it, you know? So, you know, you got to be equipped, and the formula works across the board in any market, any cycle. And that's why I created it, so you could be prepared to weather the cycles in real estate.
Right.
There's a cycle now, like I said, I believe you mentioned, you know, Idaho is benefiting because everybody's scurrying. New Jersey, there's no inventory.
Right.
So there's opportunity. We're gearing up, making more relationships with family office. We're going to start buying, and we're rocking and rolling. We're pumping projects into the planning board. Zoom meetings, crazy. You know how it is.
Yeah.
A little slower, but it's moving.
And that's the same thing, right? It's all coming back to the way it started with that first 12-acre project. It's that same napkin sketch. It's just now we got a new project to put on there, but the same formula has to work. So I feel bad asking this next question, because we've already gotten so many great things out of you, but what is your best tip? I mean, we've gotten some amazing information already, but what is your best tip for mastering real estate investing?
You know, I hate to say it, but you need to believe, you know, and I think the belief system is, you know, 90% of all millionaires are in real estate. You know, if you're concerned about diversification, you can create diversification through real estate by getting in different markets, different sectors. I think in anybody's portfolio, you need real estate. Real estate's tangible. But it first comes with belief, because if you don't believe you can do it, you can't do it. The next thing is, you know, if you want to accelerate, you know, lose your ego and surround yourself with people that are better than you. You know, till this day, I'm always looking for somebody that's better than me, because, you know, you want to go on vacation once in a while. You know, it's nice to work. If you have a passion for it, you know, I could work all day and just because I enjoy it, but you know, there's other ways to spend your time. You got to have fun energy, Zeus energy, aspirational energy, and goddess energy. You know, that's what it's all about. But, you know, I would say those two tips, and have some fun with it, you know, be able to laugh at yourself. Don't take life so serious, you know, and I'm saying that from like, you know, from an Italian heritage, even though my name is Van Liew, of worrying, you know, always worrying about the future, you know, and when you came from nothing, you know, and you weren't paying yourself, you remember when you started in development, you know, sometimes there's those months, there's no check coming in, you know, you wait for the approval. And that's why I had to create one chapter called Fee Gold. So you can fees while you're going through the process. Because when I got started, you know, I didn't have the equity, you know.
No, and I think that most people that get started in real estate don't, you know, and the thing that I hear you saying that I think is so important, and you said it several times because you referenced Tony Robbins and some other people, you know, you're getting knowledge from others. You're making that important, that learning is something that you're still doing. Right. And learning is something that you're, even through your teaching process, you're learning. And I think that I hear this with people of your level of success, is that they're always still learning, that they're always still, you know, and they're teaching what they're learning. And that's I think the thing that, you know, is so important to see in what you're doing, Ken. I mean, I have it on my bucket list. I have it on my goal for this year to write a book, right? But the reality is to actually get it done. And the reason you write a book isn't because you want to tell all the great stories about yourself. It's to share your information and your knowledge with those around you so that other people can benefit from this, right?
Yes.
I mean, this has got to be one of my favorite episodes, honestly. And no offense to anybody else that I've had on my show, but this is really, really hitting me right in the heart here. So you've written this book, Modern wealth building principles. You've formulated this out. Where can we find this?
Yes. Yeah, the best thing to do is just go right to my website. It's kenvanliew.com. And I believe the book you can get for free if you pay for shipping. And we also have a free 45-minute strategy session that you can sign up for. And Shannon, I'd be glad to send you a few books in the mail.
I'd love it. I have a book club with my employees that I pay them. I pay them $1 for the first book, and I double that every book they read, and they got to write a 3-page book report, right? But nice. There's 13 books in the year. So at the end of the year, if they've read the books, I've paid them $5,000, right? And I had somebody ask me, you already know the answer to this question, but I had somebody ask me, why would you pay your employees $5,000 to read books? I said, because it's going to make me 50 in the first year with the knowledge that they've received, right? I mean, we're not talking about Harlequin romance novels, right? I mean, we're talking about with a lot. Yeah. And so
that is brilliant.
Yeah.
That is brilliant. I mean, it all starts with alignment. What's a better way to do than that?
Exactly.
I love that idea.
And one of the books on there is Money, Master the Game with Tony Robbins, right? I mean, he makes it so simple. He breaks it down so simple that it doesn't matter if you hate real estate, you can't read that book and go, real estate's a dumb idea. You look at that and you go, man, this is genius, right? And it really helps people to understand the value of learning, right? So I can tell you next year, your book's going to be on our list of books to read. And if you guys want to know what books they are, send me an email and I'll send you my book list. There's 13 books on there. But Ken Van Liew can be found at kenvanliew.com. You can get the book there. And we're going to have to wrap this up because Ken's a busy guy. But Ken, I really, really appreciate you coming on the show. Is there anything else I can squeeze out of you? I mean, this has just been a juicy, juicy episode, but is there anything else you want to tell my listeners?
Yes. I really want to just tell everybody that even in these tough times, just stay positive. Everything is going to work out great.
Yeah.
I am insured. I've been through some of the most brutal cycles. I was hands on with the tragedy when the towers collapsed. I lost my best friend and I watched New York come back. The country's coming back. Yeah. Keep your head up, keep plugging and never give up.
Yeah. Ken, those are great words. And for those of you that are going through tough times, like Ken illustrated there, tough people make it. Yes. And we are a tough nation. We've got great entrepreneurs that are out there. So Ken, I really, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for being on the RobNet Real Estate Rundown. Thank you so much for your time. I'm looking forward to reading your book. I'll have it done a week after I get it for sure.
Thank you, Shannon. It's been my pleasure.
So guys, if you want to know more about the modern wealth building principles, go find kenvanliew.com. You can see him there. He's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places. And you can find it in the link below that's attached with this video, so you can find him there. But guys, thanks for tuning in. If you have some feedback you'd like to share, please leave a comment in the notes section. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends by using social media buttons right below there. And don't forget to subscribe to our show on iTunes to get an automatic episode updates on our modern wealth building formula and everything that Ken's got going on. And finally, please take a minute and leave us an honest review and rating on iTunes. We sure appreciate that because at the end of the day, we're trying to make this a better show for you guys. Thanks for listening. Ken, thanks again for being on the show. We'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you.